Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel and to a brand new episode of Writing Wednesdays. So here's our new question. Let's get started. Many people believe that public facilities like zoos, museums, and parks should be free. Other people think that you should pay to use these facilities. Discuss both views and give your own opinion. So as always, this is a discuss and essay question. Super easy to figure that out because you can always see discuss both views. So the first thing you need to know is, well, do I support point A or point B? Do you support the idea that they should be free or do you think they should be paid? So you need to make up your mind on that because your weak opinion, which is a side that you don't support, that's going to be point A. That's going to be paragraph A. That's going to be idea A. And the part that you do support will be paragraph B or idea B. So we could write our introduction first. You could have, for example, what is this really about? It's about public facilities. So we could write something about public facilities, right? You could say, for example, the government invests heavily. And why is this bold and italic? Let me change that. Invests heavily in creating and maintaining public facilities of a range of types, a range of public facilities, you could say, a range of public facilities to, ensure the welfare of its people, right? Standard, this is 32 words. No, I cannot see the word count. I don't know why I can't see the word count. Let me just check that real quick. Okay, so for some reason, my word count isn't showing up. That shouldn't happen. Let me check real quick. Okay, it should work now. Okay, so that's a 20-word sentence. All right. Okay, the government invests heavily in creating and maintaining a range of public facilities to ensure the welfare of its people. What else? Here the argument is, should they be free or should they be paid? So, although it may seem reasonable at first to assume that such facilities should be free of cost, charging for them makes a lot more sense once one really thinks about it. There's a lot of hedging in this sentence because the way that you express your opinion or your point of view, that has to be, you cannot be very direct with it. So you have to be careful there not to say the X is good and Y is bad. That kind of thing is not something that you want to happen. Now what we'll do is we'll have a look at the word count. This is 51 words. It's quite a large sentence. Okay. Well, so that's that. Maybe I can, for example, mention what kind of facilities. So creating and maintaining a range of facilities such as zoos and parks, amongst others, to ensure the welfare of its people. Right? Although it may seem reasonable at first such that these should be free of cost, one really thinks about it. Okay, and then my first idea will be that they should be free. So I'm going to write a main idea sentence about that. So I could say, for example, people already pay taxes, both direct and indirect. So they may have a point when so it might make sense. So it might make sense to offer such facilities, such access for free. Okay, that's my first main idea. I'm going to have 3 supporting ideas. You pay direct and indirect. Even people who don't earn an income, they still pay because when you buy something, you're paying indirect taxes, right? And not everyone, can afford like these. Maybe my idea, if I say taxes over here, then every single point has to be about taxes. So let me change that. It might make sense to offer access to such places to citizens. Of course, not every single person. Only people who are citizens should be free. Okay, Not everyone can afford high fees. These are highly educational and help with nation building. You know, you learn about your country's culture, you learn about a lot of things, and it's good, especially for, younger. You could say, for example, especially for the younger, for, young people, children and young adults as well. Okay, and then our next idea is, however, the cost to run such places are quite high and need to be recovered, right? It's not running a zoo is not something that's easy. Taxes only cover the bare minimum. Most countries are in debt. They have to take loans and whatnot. You cannot expect taxes to cover everything. Maintaining such places very expensive, especially with old artifacts and animal caretaking, etc., etc. That's a lot. It adds up. And if something is for free, people might not value, might cause damages, right? That you see that all the time, especially with public infrastructure like roads and whatnot. You don't directly pay to use roads and a lot of other facilities as well. So people just, they'll litter and they'll, do such things, which obviously is not ideal. Okay, so I have my supporting ideas. I have my main ideas as well. Let's go. Let's build our paragraphs. So my first main idea is that it might make some sense. Let me weaken that. Yeah, some sense to offer access to such places to citizens for free. This is largely due to the fact that every person, whether employed or unemployed, young or old, pays either or both indirect and direct taxes to the government, right? Everyone pays. Even if you're unemployed, you buy something from a store, you are still paying taxes. Besides, not everyone can afford the high fees, entrance fees often associated with museums and zoos. And they ought not to be excluded from such enriching experiences. In fact, these places are highly educational, especially for children and young people, and they can learn a lot about the world and their country without having to, in a fun and interactive way. And getting rid of fees or making access free. Well, I've already said that. Making these places free to visit, free of cost, could be a good idea. However, and then I have my next idea. The costs to run such places are quite high and need to be recovered in some way, shape, or form, right? Quite high and need to be recovered. Taxes only cover the bare minimum. Sure, people pay taxes, but in every country, whether developed or developing, it's not a specifically developing country thing. Taxes hardly cover the expenditures of the government, and they often resort to borrowing from other countries or organizations to fund the country's needs, right? And then maintaining such places, in addition to just ensuring the country's growth and welfare, if they had to also maintain such places all for free, all without charging a penny, it would become extremely expensive very quickly, especially when it comes to taking care of old artifacts and even animals. This may ultimately make it impossible to run such facilities at all. And then my last idea, if it's free, people might not value. In fact, let me change that to which. Okay, which, instead of may, I'm going to use will. I'm going to use strong modal verbs here. It would become extremely expensive, free. Okay. Another concern is that people generally do not value things that they receive for free and might even cause damages to these areas that may either be, again, quite expensive to repair, or maybe even impossible or not likely, unlikely. Not, or maybe not possible to fix. Okay. And then my last idea, I've already used hence, so I'm going to use therefore. Therefore, charging an entrance fee is a practice that should be retained. There we go. So we have this paragraph right here. The word count is being really weird. I don't know why. Let's see. I've got both of these paragraphs. Second one looks a lot bigger. What I can do is I can shorten that one, or I can instead expand this one, because you can see there is quite a discrepancy and that doesn't look very good. So we're going to say this is 112. It's already very good. This is 155. That is too big. Let's shorten that one instead. It's too big. It's not wrong. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's just, it doesn't look balanced. When you look at this one and you look at this one, it doesn't look balanced at all. So the cost to run space are quite high and need to be recovered. Sure, people pay taxes, but in every country, taxes hardly cover, these hardly cover expenditures, these hardly cover government expenditures. There we go. And they often need to resort to borrowing from other countries or organizations, borrowing to fund the country's needs and international countries. They also had to maintain spaces without charging anything. It would become extremely expensive very quickly, when especially taking care of older artifacts and animals, which will ultimately make it impossible to run them at all. Another concern is that people generally do not value things that are received for free. It might even cause damages that may either be quite expensive to repair, or maybe not even possible, or maybe not even possible to fix. Therefore, charging an entrance fee is a practice that should be retained, that should be continued, a practice that makes sense. Okay, that one's a little bit shorter now. Still looks quite large. It's 144 after all. Maybe I could remove a couple of things here without changing the meaning too much. Showing the country's growth and welfare, if they also have to maintain such places without charging anything. There we go. That's good enough. I don't necessarily have to make them equal. You don't have to make them equal, as long as they look more or less similar. I could, for example, not everyone can afford the high entrance fees, and they ought not to be excluded from just because of a lack of money. Financial means, you could say. Which would ultimately make them better citizens. There we go. Now we have a nice 130-ish, 127 word paragraph right here, 140 over here. They look more or less similar in size, so that's really good. And then finally, I'm going to write my conclusion. In conclusion, it is evident that Although it might seem like a nice idea to offer access for free, realistically, it is almost impossible to put into practice and would be harmful. Yeah, if such places are have free access or have no entrance fees, they would simply not be able to continue functioning, to continue operating. There we go. That's my idea. The last sentence is supposed to leave the reader with something to ponder, something to think about. So now we have our entire essay, which is 375 words. Here is your introduction. You can pause the screen to look at it carefully. And oh wow, that took just 15 minutes. That is a little bit crazy because you get 40 minutes to write your whole essay, to plan your essay, to write it, to check it. And so this just goes to show that if you are well prepared, you don't need all of that time. And in fact, 40 minutes is being quite generous. So I hope that, with all these videos that I'm making, you can see that writing is really nothing to be scared about, and the timing is also nothing to be scared about. It is enough time. Then we have our first paragraph right here. You can again pause the screen. We have our second paragraph right here. And we finally have our conclusion. Again, you can pause the screen to read the whole thing. And in case you're looking for IELTS training, we offer a lot of really good, really high quality IELTS training. Our batches start every Monday, so feel free to call the number you see on your screen to arrange a demo lesson. I'll be happy to help you. All right then, I'll see you next week when I write another essay, or maybe on Saturday when I'll do a speaking test, or you could just check out the tons of old videos that we have. All right then, see you next time.